We're almost locked in. We're 50%. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
I'm Evan Cannell. I'm here with Kyle Dungy. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Evan?
Couldn't be better. That's a lie.
great.
I'm fine. I'm doing fine. We're here
Okay.
joined by Mikhail Rowe. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, what's up? I'm great. I'm hydrated. I got my glasses on. I'm laying in my girlfriend's bed. I got my feet out.
Life has been worse for you than it is at this moment. A reminder of how this works: we read a book, and then we tell you about the book. So you can say that you know what's in it without reading it, because as much as you say you like books, you are a fraud. And you don't like books. You like TikTok. So after this hour, you may feel like you have read a book. You'll be tired and snacky, but also enlightened and potent. So let's get started. Kyle, tell us about today's book. I said potent.
I love that. That you're going to feel potent after this book.
Potent
You
as
certainly
hell.
will. Today's book is all about the stranger in the woods, and the book is called, appropriately, Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Tale of the Last True Hermit. It's about a man named Christopher Knight, also known as the North Pond Hermit. This book was written by Michael Finkel as he spoke to Chris, and it's all about a man who rejected society at the age of 20, went into the woods, and never came out for 27 years until he was literally dragged away in handcuffs, which is pretty badass. Chris is arguably, and there's evidence for this, arguably one of the most solitary humans to ever live ever. So his story's fascinating. What drew me to this book is that I've always been intrigued by people who sought solitude because I struggle with solitude. So whether it was the early Desert Fathers, Lao Tzu, Henry David Thoreau, any of these monks or monastics who went out and just is like, I'm not going to talk to anyone for an extended period of time, I've been fascinated by that. And so to learn that there was a guy who did this, like not that long ago at all, was just kind of mind-blowing to me. So that's why I was intrigued by this book. I wanted to learn from what this guy had to say. So let's get into it.
Amazing. One thing I learned is how to terrorize a community for 3 decades and emerge somehow still the hero of the story.
That is the part that blew me away about this book, is how this man's systematic takedown and disestablishment of this community I would say it's the most fascinating part of the book. It made me. He's not the hero of this book, and I think he's very much the anti-hero, and he knows, and he does it. That, like, it's clearly a man who understands what he is.
So the book starts with a mysterious character walking through the woods in Maine. There is some snow on the ground, it's muddy, and he is walking completely undetected. He knows every root, every rock, every which way to step, so he avoids detection, and he breaks into the Pine Tree Camp, which is a camp lodge for children and disabled adults. And he breaks in with ease. He has a key hidden. He just kind of goes through like it's another day at the office. And he goes through, he starts taking food and just kind of storing stuff. But the next thing he knows, to his surprise, there's a big old light in his face. The guy telling him to get on the ground. The guy has a gun, and he listens. And that's kind of the first human contact he's had in a long time.
This policeman, like, we should talk about. Like,
yes.
you gotta expect the John Wick intensity of this cop to catch this guy.
Yeah.
And like, it covers it right up top of the book. I feel like it's worth covering. He's got everything. He's got the route practiced, like, every day. He's, like, done it, like, 30 times. He knows the layout. His wife knows when this sound plays, it's fucking game time. He's got, like, all the gear from Homeland Security. Like, this was a whole thing.
This was the perfect way to pull me into this book, because the way that I'm forgetting his name now. It's written in front of me. The way that Michael Finkel writes this is he shows you their point of views, and he really puts you in the head of each of them. And I forget the guy who caught him, but that guy, his resilience and determination is so fascinating, and it just immediately I was like, oh my god, like, this hermit is super villain that's just been tormenting these people, and it's the way he takes them down is so, like you said, like, doing the dry runs and calling Homeland Security to get all these alarms plugged in, and his placement of the alarms so that he won't see that there's a placement. And he memorized the location of the motion detectors so that the lights wouldn't come on. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, this guy's got it down to a T, and you find out why the community wants to figure out who he is so bad, because as he's being interrogated, he blatantly admits he's lived all by himself for 27 years. He has committed thousands and thousands of burglaries. So many burglaries that can't be said enough. He has just broken into so many homes, taken things, and the majority of the items were just kind of basic items. He stole flashlights, clothes, batteries, a bunch of propane tanks, the occasional Game Boy, and food. Just simple stuff to help him survive. Nothing fancy, no jewelry, nothing crazy. And once they've captured him, they're realizing, oh my gosh, this guy who's been terrorizing people for like 27 years, they're like, we finally have him. It's like they caught a legend or something that they didn't think was real, but he's sitting right in front of them.
Well, a lot of people didn't think he was real. Like, he was a legend. There were some people that were like, okay, these break-ins happen way too often for there not to be, like, a guy out here. But there was, like, different legends. Some people called him, like, the hungry man so that their kids wouldn't get too scared of the fact that, like, all their food was gone when they got back to the cabin.
But that sounds so much worse. The hungry man sounds so much scarier.
That's exactly what when they said that was for the kids, I was like, that sounds like a horror movie. The hungry man.
What did they call him first? Because there was another nickname, and they were like, "Oh no, that's too scary." It was the Lonely Man or something. I don't know.
The sad man or the lonely man.
Yeah, these parents really not killing it at making him not scary.
Well, they keep getting robbed, so obviously they're not the brightest.
So after he's caught, he's booked into a county correctional facility. This is the first night in over 27 years he's spent indoors, and as soon as he's caught, people are overwhelming him. People want to meet him. Girls want to meet him. Everyone's writing to him. Documentaries want to come out and talk to him. And he's like, no, I still don't want to freaking talk to anybody. But on a whim, the writer, Michael Finkel, hears about this. He's living in Montana. And he's like, I'm just going to write this guy, see what happens. And to his surprise, he writes back. And this is how we learn how Chris communicates. And it's really not the friendliest way to communicate. No, but also, like, can you imagine how horrifying it would be? You're, like, thriving in the woods. Nobody knows that you exist. You're totally alone and just one with nature. And then suddenly, like, you're in prison. Like, not just like the world, it's like back to prison where the only other people there are, like, criminals and the lights are on all the time. And there's, like, a lot of things to be afraid of in prison. So I've heard.
Like what?
Like things that you don't have to worry about in the woods.
That's true. Like murder.
Like shivs, for instance. That's one of the things.
Shivs, people. That was the one part that kind of... it made me feel bad for him so quickly, is that he lives this life of solitude for 27 years. And just like how... It makes you realize how brutal prison is. Even though it's argued he was living in a prison of his own making already.
Well,
we'll get into
deep
solitude, whether it's voluntary or not, but it gets pretty deep into that. So I do appreciate the glasses tilt, though, for our people who can't see. McKylan has tilted his glasses, and he appears much, much smarter. Thank you.
Tough. It's a tough bar to cross. I don't know how much smarter I can look with this haircut.
That is the...
This is it.
Glasses peak.
The DJ Pauly D haircut and the glasses.
Yeah, that's right. You've never looked smarter.
I saw that guy in an airplane. It doesn't matter. So it's the only famous person. It's the only famous person I've ever seen in person was Pauly D.
Amazing.
Anyway, so Michael is writing to Chris. Chris is writing back in like just sentences, just like yeah. He's not giving him much. But Michael's persistent. He's fascinated by this guy for a lot of the same reasons we are. Michael's someone who has sought solitude before, never to the extent that Chris has. And so he's really intrigued by him. And he starts to go visit him in prison. And to his surprise, Chris lets him visit him in prison. And they don't start up a conversation right away. It takes a while to get Chris talking. But as he does talk, he starts sharing his story, and that's what takes up the majority of the book and what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, which we got to get back to this at some point, but I do wonder how Chris Knight feels about that now. Like, the one guy he got back to, it wasn't some guy that was like, maybe I'll write a book. It was like, I'm a New York Times bona fide journalist, and I'm going to write a pretty famous book about you. Guy that likes solitude and doesn't want anyone to know who he is.
Well, that was the interesting thing, is because, like, the first thing he thought when they asked him, he was like, what year is it? And then he said, what was it, Chernobyl? Yeah, and he's like, the last thing I remember was Chernobyl. And then the guy, he's like, oh no, now they're going to think I'm some environmentalist freak. Like, he's so aware of how this is gonna go from the jump.
Yeah, Chris is very, very smart, and we learn this as we start learning about his life, is that he grew up in a pretty big family. He's one of 6 children. He grew up not very far from where he lived in the woods, and we learn that his family was just super quiet and private, but they weren't like, I don't know how to make this, they weren't weird. Like, people knew them, they were friendly, but they just kept to themselves. And Chris and all his siblings, they all got straight A's, super smart, friendly enough. They just kind of like being alone.
Yeah, that was scary. The fact that he's just some guy.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the part I never quite got over, is this is just a guy. Yeah, because you'd think, like, oh, okay, he must have been, like, abused or mentally ill or something like that to, like, want to just leave society. And it's like, no, it was just a whim. He was just like, what if I just never came back?
I agree, and there's a point where it talks about years before he's captured, someone captures a photo of him breaking into their home. And the photo, if you look it up online, is the most boring white guy you've ever seen. Like, the most unassuming. He's clean-shaven. He's got these big old glasses. This is the guy we're talking about, and you keep wanting to find reasons to be like, oh, this is why he lived in such an interesting way. But there's not a lot. So after high school, Chris works a few odd-end jobs. He's got, a pretty promising career. He's working in computers. Before computers are a big thing, he could have probably ended up making a ton of money. But one day he's like, I'm just going to take my new car to Florida. He drives from Maine to Florida, and on the way back, he's like, maybe I'll just never come back. And so he goes way north, almost to the border of Canada, ditches his brand new car, and just walks out in the woods. He doesn't have any camping gear, nothing. He just freaking walks out. He didn't tell anyone, not even his family.
My man got Gumpy. Just straight Forrest Gumpy. That's the most Forrest Gump thing to do. I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna walk her out into the woods.
But I didn't feel like going home that day.
This is the part that pissed me off, and this is where he's like, to get to the point where he left, he drove past his family home. And he's like, I'm not gonna say anything to them. These are the people who raised me. I'm just gonna go. Like, he could have just turned a little bit, told his family he was leaving. No, he just goes.
Yeah, and he makes like a special point to be like, I didn't even slow down. I wanted to drive by, but I didn't slow down. Which is savage.
It's so. This is the part where I did realize, though, that we're not. This not is because when I started this book, because Kyle, you said it was magical, and so I kind of was coming into the book with this magical, like, this is going to be this like Big Fish. It's this beautiful tale of like this man's beautiful solitude, and then you realize that this man is just a sociopath who just wandered into the woods one day and was like, good enough.
Yes, that's kind of how it seems.
Yeah, exactly what it is.
It's what it is. It's not. I was very surprised at how, which it's magical in its own way, but how just nuts and bolts. This is just such a kind of sad guy who just was like, I'm in the woods. I was in the woods. I'm in the woods. Like, he has no frills. No, he has no modus operandi. Like, at least Ted Kaczynski had a manifesto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No manifesto, no even, like, motive, really. Like, it's crazy. No. He wasn't like, I was just so disenfranchised with, he doesn't do any of that. He's just like, I just walked into the woods, and then I was like, I could say.
Yeah,
And then I just did that every day for 27 fucking years.
Yeah, for 27 years, you didn't think, just like, as you were in a home, in somebody else's home, like, all right, this is enough.
It reminds me a lot of, at first, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like the book or the movie Into the Wild, where that young guy goes off and he burns his money, and he has all these writings of Thoreau and all these other people, and this guy's just the opposite of that. he's like, I don't care.
Yeah, that guy. So, what was his name again? The Into the Woods.
Was his name
Into
Christopher?
the Wild.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
I
He
can't
sat
remember.
on a bus.
Yeah, he was on the bus and took that really sad photo of himself. But you
Was
want to call him just like an idiot, because it's like, you dumb idiot, you just went off in the woods and died. Like who does that? But he had like this whole thing he believed and wanted to get away from society and was like making a statement.
Yeah, it turns out the secret to survival is like not having a motive.
Yeah, if you don't care. Because he's a sociopath.
But which is so Taoist to just be like, I'm just going to let things happen. So in a way, it's
Fair.
It's kind of beautiful, but it's also not enlightening at all. So anyway, he goes and he's just kind of wandering out in the woods, and then he realizes, oh my gosh, I'm hungry. I don't have food. I don't have anything. And so he gets really hungry and he eats a dead bird off the side of the road raw. And that's when he decides, this isn't going to work. I need food. I'm not a trapper. I'm not a hunter. I need to get food other ways. And so he decides, I should probably start stealing stuff. Even though he's against it. Like, he makes it totally clear the whole time. I know that stealing is wrong. My family would be ashamed of me. But he's just like, it's probably just easier to just steal stuff. I don't know.
Which is bonkers. Like, just as a reminder, his car is right there. He knows exactly where it is. He can just walk out and get back in his car. He's so hungry, and he's like, you know what is better than seeing other humans? Robbing a house, breaking and entering. He's like, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, and he doesn't, it's not even, because we don't know, it's because he doesn't know why he's doing this. It's so weird that he decides, rob people. Just take people's shit. Because there's no, like you said, I mean, the car's right there.
It's right there.
Go home. You know how to make money.
His mom's got a pantry full of food.
You drove past your mom's house to get here.
So eventually he's like, okay, this stealing stuff is probably going to work. He makes his way down to Augusta, Maine, which is where these two large ponds are. If you look it up, it's freaking beautiful. This area of Maine, super forested. And he finds a place where he wants to camp, and he just stays there. And he stays in this campsite undetected for 27 years. And here's the thing that freaking gets me, is after the author is meeting with him and he goes back to his campsite, he realizes his campsite is like 3 minutes away from a road. It's not even that isolated. It's insane.
You can hear cars. You can hear a car. It's just, I mean, I don't want it to become this thing where I just trash talk the character, the main guy of the book. We picked two guys that they're so different in so many different ways. Because last book we read was Imminent. This one, he's a crazy man. He's crazy. He has a problem.
Certainly like an outlier for sure. I'm fascinated by him though. Truly, I'm just like, I just know because I want to be alone all the time. I do. I'm just like, I'm a deeply introverted person in a deeply extroverted body, and it's just rough sometimes. But I know for a fact I would get 3 days in and be like, I really miss society, or just seeing or like complaining about my problems to someone. Like I need somebody to make their day worse with my complaining, and he just never kicked in.
No, and he even says at one point, and I think about this a lot because I complain to my wife a lot, is that at one point he's like, there was no one to complain to, so I just stopped complaining. And I'm like, what?
That's the best part about, especially relationships. There's nothing, I look for things to be mad about in my day so that I can get to Tiffany and tell her all the things that bothered me. when she has a problem, it's like a salve. Just I'm alive. I'm dripping wet with just lifeblood.
So diving back into how he survived, he was very strategic with when he stole. He only stole in the off season. He never stole from people who lived there permanently. Like, just he had this down to a T, and that's why he didn't get caught for so long. He also never once lit a fire, which is insane to think about because he's in freaking northern Maine, where it gets crazy cold. So how he heats his food when he heats it is he just steals propane tanks. He just rows across the pond, steals a propane tank, brings it back, and that's just kind of how he survives. During the winters, he doesn't leave at all because he'll leave tracks, and so he just hunkers down and tries not to die. And that's kind of his thing.
This is the best. Well, I mean, it's not. Are we going to get into it towards the end when we're talking about the victims? No, we can talk about it now. I want to get into his terrorizing of these people. He's terrorizing these people with just this perfect mind fuckery that only at every step of the way, if he was like a Russian operative, he couldn't have done this better. Because he just gets into this small town and makes people not trust. He sows distrust. He makes everybody lock down their homes. He makes it unsafe for everybody. Like, he just does. It's this psyop that just takes over this town, and it's so fascinating to hear people talk about the effect that this like specter has. And he thinks he's being some like you're saying, like Taoist. Like, oh, I just solitude. And it's like, your solitude, you've actually become a living ghost for these people. And you're tearing this town apart, which is so fascinating. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And I don't think he's under any, like, dissolutions that this is good. He's deeply ashamed of, like, all of his stealing the whole time. He, like, knows it's wrong, but he's like, well, I gotta eat and I don't want to talk to anyone. So this is how it's gotta go. But, like, he is absolutely, like, George Clooney from Ocean's 11 on every single robbery. And this is happening every 2 weeks. He's so meticulous. People would like they knew he was out there, so they'd leave notes on the door that's like, please don't steal from us. Just tell us what you need, and we'll like leave it on the porch. And he wouldn't touch any of that because he thought it was bait or like had like an ink packet or something in it that would be able to track him. And so then they would get there, and it's just like they would walk. You got to think. They're walking into their house and they're like, okay, what's gone? You know, and it's like nothing except for the candy and like the batteries in the remote. Which isn't that like a Dane Cook, like a whole? Isn't there like
literally a Dane Cook bit? But that's I had the same thought because there's a part when they're like, we're losing things that aren't small enough to be funny, but aren't big enough to be scary. And I was like, that's the most terrifying.
Yeah.
No, and he tries to not take the big things. He still tries to be a decent person, but it just ends up being these mind games that are just like, you know, imagine you have a cabin in Maine, you've had a really hard year, you go up to relax, and like you said, you walk in, you're like, okay, what was taken this time? Or you're just like, when is someone going to sneak into my house? They don't know that he's not dangerous. He could have a gun. They have no idea. They just know some guy's breaking in constantly and not getting caught.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. Nobody's ever seen him, but you might have like a little bit of metal shavings on your windowsill. I'm just like, that's so much scarier.
It's terrifying, and it's so funny that he has such a moral code that he's sticking to. It's very like every movie, or especially when you, like now when you meet people and you'll meet a person who's a piece of shit. But they have like these rules that they stick to that they're like, oh, I would never say something like that if I'm going to tell somebody, I'm going to tell them to their face. I believe in the truth. But then they're a dick. And like they just keep telling people mean things to their face. And you're like, I understand that you think your code is worthwhile, but it's actually making it so much worse.
Totally.
And like, it's such a fascinating, like the level of selfishness this guy gets to, that it's just this weird game of like he's trying to be almost selfless, where he just wants to be alone, which is great. But then he's ruining, like, just terrorizing these people, and he doesn't see it as a sort of, he's just at the necessity level. And it's like, you want to just scan his brain, but it doesn't actually track. You think you would know that you're terrorizing somebody.
Yeah, well, and we're using the word terrorizing a lot. It should be noted, some people, it was that way. They were, like, afraid all the time. But there were some people that were just like, he can have my candy. I don't know. Like, I don't know who this guy... Like, some people were even like, I don't think this guy should be punished.
No, yeah. A lot of people were just like, buy land for him. That he can, like, they were... there were two opposite sides. People were like, he ruined my life. He ruined my safety, my happy place. And then people were like, I'll buy him land to live off and I'll stock him with food his whole life. I get it. Like, so there were these two weird opposite ends of the spectrum on how people reacted to him.
And it's a funny litmus to see. Just kind of, I was talking about this with some friends, and this idea of, like, you find out who you really are in times of turmoil, you know, and just seeing these reactions of these people. Like, this is a great experiment of just human behavior, where you just have one person who goes off the beaten path and just watch the ripples effect that happen around the person who doesn't abide by rules. And it's so fascinating to see what that did to people.
Are you saying that you find out who you are when you find out somebody's been breaking into your house secretly for 30 years and whether or not you were scared? Is that what I'm hearing?
You're going to find something out about yourself.
I'm not ready for that.
Dude, the biggest, you could hear my labia flapping in the wind. I'd be such a pussy.
Well, I don't want to disregard that comment, but there were a few people who, like, stayed up for weeks on end with guns in their hands trying to catch this guy. But Chris is like, I already broke into their house. I'm not going to go back for months. Like, he already knew how to not get caught. And so some people were, I'm ready to kill this guy if I catch him. And he's like, well, I'm not going to get caught then. Like, duh.
Yeah, not to mention, for every one time he broke into somebody's house, he was watching houses, like, for the rest of the time. Like, he knew. He was like, oh, there's a guy in a gun right there. I'm going to stare him down. And the guy with the gun's like, any minute now he's going to walk in this door.
So when they finally got a video of him, and you find out that he was just, like, a clean-shaven, nice little young gentleman. Not young, but, you know, a nice gentleman-looking white guy just in your house. And I was like, that is just the fact that he had the wherewithal to not look like a hermit changes these little nuggets throughout the whole thing change the because he's standing watching these people with guns. Just like, I don't look like what you think I should look like, so you won't see me.
He's very much an enigma. So we're talking about how kind of insane he is. It appears to us how insane he is. But there were a lot of normal things he did. Most of us probably wondered, what did you do with all that time? And there were some pretty normal things he did. He loved stealing books. Like, he was a big book guy. He stole old video games if he could. At one point, he had a TV he stole from someone. He just carried a TV out. And yeah, he admitted in his 20s he had a good stack of Playboys as well. And hearing that gave me so much relief for some weird reason that I'm like, okay, he's a bit more normal than we think.
It's the perfect crime. Because at the barbecue, all the wives are like, oh, I'm so glad we didn't have any break-ins, and the men are over by the grill like, all my porn is gone.
Yeah, you can't, you just like, he took all my porn that I was hiding.
A guy comes out to his wife, where the hell are all my Playboys? Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. He's like, what Playboys? He's like, nothing. Nothing's happened. The house is fine.
So, like, he had a big stack of Playboys and just tons and tons of books. And because we're a book podcast, we're going to talk about some of his opinions on them because he was a literary, aficionado, and so he had a lot of opinions. So here are some of his opinions, and then we'll talk about them. He loved James Joyce, but he refused to read what is James Joyce's most popular novel, Ulysses, because he said, I refuse to be intellectually bullied into finishing it. And if you've ever tried reading Ulysses, that makes sense. He thought Frost and Thoreau were overrated. You'd think he'd be like buddies with Thoreau, but he's like, no, that guy didn't know his stuff. He thought Emerson was tolerable. He admitted that he used John Grisham to wipe his butt on several occasions. And his favorite book was Notes from the Underground by the greatest author of all time, Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is very appropriate because Notes from the Underground is all about a guy who retreats to the underground and just shuns society. And so that was his favorite book. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on some of his book picks.
Douche. Guy's a douche.
Dude, the John Grisham thing is such a middle finger to like every dad in their 40s, though. That's just rough. Also, the whole intellectual bullying thing, like, you live alone. He's managing to get bullied by his books.
That's
the level of sensitivity on this guy.
Well, I'm like, if your favorite book is just a book about you, basically,
Seriously.
you're a douche. That's such a douchey thing to say.
Yeah, I love how he's like, he doesn't say this, but you very much get the impression that he thinks he's better than Thoreau.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you lived alone a lot longer than Thoreau. But yeah, he really just seems kind of morally superior when he talks about these things.
If it is a competition, I'm giving it to Chris Knight, though.
100%.
You know, Thoreau was like, I'm going to be a hermit, but it's so I can write about it and gain acclaim. And Chris Knight literally was like, if nobody ever finds out where I was or where I went and I just die here, best case scenario.
That's what keeps me on. I call him a douche, but that's what keeps me on his team through all of this. Is there's this weird. It's just such a likable quality of just this, like, he's so settled.
No, and he's straight up rude sometimes, and I don't think Michael Finkel gives us the full picture of how difficult he was. But like at one point, he's telling Michael Finkel as he's interviewing him in prison, he's like, "Go back to your family. Why would you leave your family alone? Like, how dare you?" Like, and he's criticizing him all along the way. But it's like, obviously, he said in the 27 years he said one word to someone because someone saw him, a hiker, and he said hi. And he said that was the extent of his communication in 27 years. So obviously he's rough around the edges.
But that makes him likable. This weird, I think in this weird way, because he's not doing anything, he's just so brutally honest. Like, I think that's the thing I liked about all of this, is that he's just so even keel that you're like, I love this guy.
Yeah. He does not give a shit. Like, I always, no matter who it is, I'm like, if I see him, I'm like, okay, well, let's stay in touch. Yeah, like, okay, we'll get together. He's like, he just tells Michael Finkel, he's like, I don't like you and I don't want to see you again. Like, every time.
Yeah, we had, when we were in high school, we went to a high school that had a couple of kids with autism, and they're always my favorite because they just tell you what's up. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like that, it's just such a commendable thing because I don't know about you guys, but I've been molded into a ball of just poopy jelly by every time. If somebody asks to, like, hey, we should hang out. If somebody asks me, like, we should go hang out, we should totally hang out, I, through my teeth, I'll be like, yeah, let's go. Dude, you're the best guy I've ever met. And then I'll turn around to Tiff and I'll be like, hated that guy. Never going to see him again.
So you're a girl.
Yes, and that's why. Completely.
Sorry,
but it's
we established this. He was talking about his labia earlier. Look at his glasses. Look at McKylan's glasses in here right now,
guys. This is an audio medium.
Well, they're women's glasses, so that.
Thank you.
If you were confused, to the audio listeners. They're pink. It was worth the bit. Right before we even got on, I literally, you guys were like, we're in the room, and I was set up and ready to go, and I ran out of the room to go grab the glasses.
Amazing. Okay, getting back into it. McKylan, you mentioned autism, so so after Chris he's captured. everyone wants to give this guy a diagnosis. Like Evan said, they're going to be like, you were traumatized, you are schizophrenic, all these other like mental health diseases I've never heard of, and if I've never heard of them, like that's saying something.
Really?
And so they're diagnosing him with all this stuff, but the problem is he doesn't fit any of the criteria, and it's kind of driving people insane. They're like, yeah, he could be autistic, he could, have a personality disorder, but he doesn't really fit everything from the diagnostic manual. And it's just kind of driving people crazy because everyone wants to label him as something, as to why he's lived his life this way, and they just can't.
That I really appreciated that he wasn't just immediately diagnosed, though. It's again this like mystique that he has. I think that we kind of diagnose away mystique a lot in the world.
I love that. I'm sorry.
Like
I love that, McKylan. I love what you just said.
But we were talking about it with the UFOs and how we don't like. Once you get the military involved, it's all this. We know what this is, and it's this, and it's this. So you kind of explain away this mystery that kind of makes life interesting. And it's the same thing with him, where it's. I don't want to find out that he's just got like a borderline personality disorder, because that just makes it less. You're belittling him to a title.
Totally, and I could go on and on about this forever. Because, I think diagnoses are good and they can be helpful, but people are way too complex to be like, you are this or you are that, especially with mental health. And so that's why I found what you said so beautiful. It's like, it takes away the mystery. It takes away some of who that person is when you're just like, oh, they're this. They're autistic. They're depressed. They're anxious. Like, whatever it is, we're not allowing people to just be very weird, complex, beautiful people. That's why Chris stands out, is because, like, despite their best efforts, they can't really give him something exactly because he's a human, and humans are just way too complicated.
That's true. Yeah. The only time I'm really glad that diagnoses exist is when I need to make an excuse for my unexcusable behavior.
Exactly. I
feel like when I'm being deeply lazy, I'm just like, look, it's because I have super autism chronically. Yeah, exactly.
No, and like I said, diagnoses are helpful. I got out of so much crap because I have rheumatoid arthritis. Someone's like, oh, come help me mow my lawn. I'm like, I can't. My fingers don't work. Like, I get it.
Can't you see?
Can't you see?
Can't you see these messed up fingies?
When I go to Disneyland, I have to walk with a cane. And it's not so I can get on the rides faster. It's because I'm in immense amounts of pain.
My body hurts, man. That's why I have a bad attitude. Give me your juice. To be clear, though, I do think like diagnoses can be good. It's a good thing to know what you have. I think it's good for you. I think 100%. People should know what because then you can learn how to deal with it and stuff.
Yeah, and all three of us are like, just to clarify for the listeners, we're all familiar with like various diagnoses and strange things that happen in the psyche from time to time. I think my favorite phrase that I've heard is that it's not my fault. My mental health is not my fault, but it's my responsibility. Ooh. Because then you have both of them. You don't have to blame yourself and feel bad and like, why am I like this? But you do have to take responsibility for your behavior and the way that you interact and so anyways, like I kind of it's a fascinating idea that like he left, in the 80s around like really, really early on before I think we knew very much about mental health. And then he emerges into a world where they're like, there's a diagnosis for you. And it's like applying that label then retroactively where he's like, okay, was this autism? Was this just like autism for 30 years? But it's fascinating because like he went out before there was like, I'm going to go into the forest because I'm autistic or whatever. He was just like, I don't feel like talking to people and I don't think I will anymore.
Yeah, he left when they would have just put him out in the forest by himself.
Jesus Christ.
That's when, like, that's the level where in the 80s, talk to a guy from the 80s. He would have been like, oh, yeah, I met this guy. He was a little weird, so we just ignored him. And it's like, yeah, he needed help.
Well, we sent him to Vietnam,
Yeah, we put him to war. He worked in the factory. He couldn't speak English. It's like, no, he had palsy. What are you talking about?
No, I know we can't just agree with each other and over again, but I'm actually surprised, very surprised by some of the profound things you guys have said on this front about the diagnosis, and I couldn't agree more. I want to echo what Evan said. It's a hard pill to swallow that it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility to deal with it. That's not an easy thing to accept. And it, and Chris Knight, who we're talking about, he's one of those people. He's like, yeah, I'm probably going to be in jail the rest of the time.
It's your parents' fault.
Yeah, or they're just not making excuses, and that's hard to do because life is really hard. Mental health is freaking impossible to deal with. But yeah, like you just can't make excuses. I should stop talking about this because I think about this way too much.
No, it's good. I think that is something that this book kind of, one of the bigger things that made me like this book and that I took away from the book is just like sometimes it was so nice to read a book about a truly unique person. I'm not trying to make them sell. There's not a bunch of diagnoses explaining why they're unique or the opposite. It's just a picture of just this oddball. And you just get to sit in this world where you're just learning about this freaking weirdo. And he's awesome. And he's a douchebag. And he's mean. And he's a ghost that terrorizes people. But it's so much more fun to have somebody who's just this weird ball of like, he has moral complexity, but then he robs everybody. He doesn't want to be intellectually bullied, and he wipes his butt with John Grisham novels, but he's monosyllabic and can barely speak. Like, it's such a fascinating just conundrum.
Yeah, it's a beautiful tale about people, and something I'll admit, like we're getting kind of deep, which I love. But one thing I really wanted in this book is I wanted that revelation from Chris. I wanted what a lot of these people talk about. This is what I learned when I went into solitude. This is what I learned when I became a monk. And, after prying Chris for a long time, the author, Michael Finkel, he finally gets this sage wisdom that Chris gives, that he's finally able to reveal. And this is what Chris says. After all the time, what he's learned is just get enough sleep.
Yeah, like he's really, like Michael has put in the work of like listening to his story and asking him questions, and he's like, okay, maybe if I ask him the douchey question, he'll answer, and he's like, okay, what was like your biggest piece of wisdom? And like, I don't know, that was an interesting one to me, because I was like, is this just you being like a tool about it? Like, are you just like, you're just like kind of poking fun at him, or is that actual sage wisdom? Because I'm thinking, I don't know, I can't decide. I don't sleep well, and I don't feel great about it,
I think that one is a double-edged, like, I think it is a sage wisdom through his dick lens. Because he's a dick.
No. Like the whole, I mean, and it pissed me off. Because I went into this book wanting that wisdom I get from reading some of these books about monastics and spiritual people and these gurus, and they're always offering that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, what is this guy who's lived alone longer than any of them got? And he's just like, oh no, just get enough sleep. Just like right on brand for this guy. I kind of want to talk about solitude a bit more because Mac had touched on it, that there are people who are forced into solitude, like solitary confinement or something, and they describe it as like the worst mental torture that they can ever experience. Like, it's the most terrifying thing. But then there's guys like Chris who seek out solitude and come out feeling so much more alive and so much more in tune with the world. And so I thought it was really interesting that it's like, if someone is forcing this on you, it'll ruin your life and destroy your brain. But if you seek it out, it'll have the opposite effect somehow.
Except for that one lady that like voluntarily entered the like cave experiment. They were seeing like, if you're in a cave in isolation and you can't like see the sun, like what's the body's natural sleep rhythm? And it was, what was it, like 8 months? And then she came out and was like never the same and killed herself.
Yeah, it like broke her brain.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't think it's just whether or not it's voluntary. I think like you do have to be a special kind of person for solitude to not mess you up.
Also, he was in the woods. That's different than a cave.
Different than a cave.
No, and like...
yeah, maybe. Or like a solitary cell.
He had a thing. He had stuff to do. He had people to take their shit, and he needed to watch them. He was busy. He had thousands of homes that he had, not thousands, but he had thousands of people that he needed to affect them.
You're right. I think it does take a special kind of person, and I think I'm frustrated because I want to be that person, but if I'm like alone with my thoughts for more than 3 hours, I want to scream. And I so badly want to be this guy, and I've spent hours and hours, practicing solitude, but I'm just not like, I'm not like Chris Knight. I just need to freaking be around people, and it kind of drives me crazy. But I don't know. It's different strokes for different folks, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I've spent a decent amount of time with solitude. My biggest thing would be I can't be alone with my thoughts. I will think myself into a hole. I have to have music and stuff. But I was an only child. I spent so much time by myself and was fine. I think the thing, we make jokes about it, but I think one thing that did kind of help was that he was so focused on survival in this weird way and not being found. I think that once he had purpose,
I don't know. It takes a different kind of person, and like you were saying, Mac, it kind of just depends. But if you have a purpose, I think that helps a lot.
No, that's what I'm kind of weirdly coming to now after, like, when as we're having this kind of, now that we've decided to have a very deep talk, it does really solidify that idea of, like, if you have something that you're trying to do and it's your only focus, you can do it for 20 years, like, you can, no matter what you can. And he was just focused on being alone and surviving, and he was the king at it. He did it the best. It's crazy, but that whatever you choose to just focus on, he did. He was a great burglar. He was robbing. If he wanted to, he could have stolen so much from all these people, and he would have built this skill that he could have gone and been like this horrible guy that goes to tons of people's homes and takes valuables and all this stuff. But this purpose of survival really just kept him alive in this fascinating way. And, like, maybe he's crazy, but that's cool.
Love it. Evan, anything you want to add? I'm looking at you, looking for some of that wisdom.
Dude, I have so much to add. I don't want to, like, derail completely here, but...
Derail? I don't know why we started pontificating about purpose.
So, here's the thing. I'm going to take a more, like, just boring, like, mathematical approach here. I just think the risk-reward ratio for seeing other people was just barely off balance enough that he was like, because yeah, sure, I think he was like trying to survive. There was things that he was doing, right? Like he was reading and whatever, but he talks about he would just sit in his like chair that he stole for just like, that was a lot of his time. It's just like sitting in the chair. And because he was like, what did you do? He's like, oh, I mostly sat in this chair right here. And I really, like, I think it was more that the interaction with other people, because he talks about, like, you have to watch their facial expressions and think about what they think about what you're saying, and did you use the right words, and what are they feeling? You have to predict how they're feeling so you know how to say what you're going to say, and that all of that was just so exhausting. I think it was that he was exhausted with that and just wasn't getting much out of, like, being with people. I don't think it, like, did much for him, and so I think that's where it's, like, something in his mind, he was just like, yeah, it's not worth it. Like, not being a criminal is just not worth it. I don't want to go home and, like, have to think about what other people are feeling. I want to sit in this chair and just not worry about it,
Yeah, and just be. You're right. And yeah, I think, we talk about the activities he did, the books he read, but the majority of the time he was just kind of existing and just, being in tune with things and making Thoreau look like a little bitch. With how much time he spent out there alone.
Well, I mean, he didn't die, so...
Thoreau didn't die.
Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking about the Into the Woods guy, Into the Wild. We keep calling it Into the Woods. I don't know why.
Getting back to, we've talked about solitude, we've talked about a lot of things. We've gotten deeper than we thought we'd get. Now let's get back to Chris's story. We talked about how the victims felt about him. I talked about that prison was rough. So for the first time in 27 years, Chris got sick because he said, you need to be around people to get sick. That's why I never got sick. So his first week in prison, he gets really sick, and
that logic doesn't check out.
Yeah, he ate a dead roadkill bird, like, first thing.
Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I wish it were that simple.
I bet he was having just horrible bowel movements and just life-threatening diarrhea, and was like, "I'm fine."
Like, you just didn't want to talk about it.
He just didn't. He's just so he hates people so much that he's like, it's their fault.
He's like, diarrhea for 27 years, worth it.
It's better talking to Jen from accounting. Ugh.
Like the true sickness is humankind.
It's like, no, it's not, you loser. Get out of here. Go get some sleep.
It's eating dead birds.
Go take a nap, you dick.
Yeah. So he's eventually sentenced. He's let off pretty easy for stealing from people for 27 years. He just has to do like a few more months in addition to his other time, and then he has to, he's on strict probation. He's got to get a job, and he can't go back to the woods, which is his whole thing. And so it's really hard. He has to go live. He ends up living with his 80-year-old mom, and working for his brother. And Michael tries to visit him a few times, and the few times he does, he realizes that Chris is struggling with reintegration to society, as you would imagine.
Did anybody else feel super sad when he got a job?
This was so sad.
I felt sad for his family.
That he's living with?
And the guy who had to do his job interview. It's like, see, there's a big gap in your resume. You don't have a resume.
Where have you been?
What's been going on here? And then you just have this surly asshole just being like, I was away from the sickness that is people, and I have to get back to my lady love, the woods. We make doors, so.
You make a good point about his family. Like, he walks out of the woods, and his mom's like, You're alive? You were 4 miles from here the whole time?
I'm not letting him in my house. If my son comes back, I'm almost 80, and he's been living in the woods, I'm like, I don't know what problem he had. No.
Yeah, his father died thinking he was dead, and he just stumbles out.
Terrible. He's a terrible man. He's...
It's crazy. But also, though, like, it's like what you've been saying. You kind of root for him because you're like, you did it, man. You're fucking free. You're free as can be. And then he comes back and he's like, and then I got a job with my brother fixing engines. And I was like, I was so sad.
Especially, that's just such a terrible job to have to do. Like,
you got to do whatever you want for 27 years. Now you got to be like, where the nut goes.
His brother's like, oh, he's not interacting with people. He's just kind of doing his thing. But, like, you don't get it. He was a free man for 27 years, and now he has to fix scrap metal. It's the worst.
I feel bad. The brother is a saint, because I would have been like, no, he can't work for me. Take his ass back to prison. I don't know that guy.
Well, and so Michael, the author, he tries to interact with some of the brothers sometimes, and they don't want anything to do with him either. And he's like, how'd you feel about Chris being gone? And they're like, well, we just figured he might not be dead. I don't know. What?
It's a crazy family. They were just like, wonder when he's going to come back.
When did this book come out?
He was pretty recently. He was caught in like 2013.
Really? Because that's the part that I feel like is just it makes it feel like such an old school thing, because it just feels like one of those families where it's just like, oh, they're weird. Like, we don't hang out with the Johnsons. They're weird. Like, he comes from that family.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Like,
he very much does.
It's just the whole family's a bunch of weirdos, and he's just the one weirdo who broke.
That's right. We're kind of lucky he went the hermit route, because his childhood sounds like a serial killer. Where they're like, oh, nobody knew that family. No, but
like his serial killing was living out in the woods, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, dude. Here's the thing, dude. You're saying that if he was your brother and then he came back, you would be like, no. I would be like, you and me are going to go to a place called Beverly Hills, and we're going to wait until nighttime, and then you don't ever have to fix engines again. I don't ever. He would be my Rain Man of robbery.
That took me a second. I was like, what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I would be like, let me show you something going to blow your mind. A little something I like to call Finding Nemo. That's the route I would go. But
so fast. I would just be like, we're going to go, and you see that building over there? Just get anything shiny.
Dude, Mac is saying you're not welcome here. me and him are doing heists, and Kyle's like, Pixar.
We're watching
It's gonna
movies.
blow your mind.
Yeah, I'm not hanging out with a guy. He's been in the woods for 20 years. He's got something.
Also, his diet was not great because he was just stealing a lot of sugar things and things he didn't have to eat. So, like, it was just a lot of junk. And at one point, he's like, I almost came out of the woods because I thought I was getting diabetes, but then I thought, no, I don't want to.
He is.
Yeah. The list of things that are preferable to him over seeing another human being for the rest of his days, it's just crazy. He's like, you know what, diabetes wouldn't be so bad, then I wouldn't have to talk to anybody.
Just that awkward moment at the count. Just anytime you go to a convenience store and you have to be like, oh, what? Oh, sorry, what? What'd you say? No ice, thank you. No, I said no ice. He chose 20 years in the woods.
Or repeat my order to a barista again.
Ever. You're telling me I have to have an awkward run-in with my neighbor where I can't tell if they're going into their house or if they're not, so I kind of have to just stand there, and now we're just talking.
He had one, he said goodbye, and then they started walking the same way, too many.
And he just gave up on society as a whole.
He was like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, so he's out. He hates life. He tells Michael the one time. Michael tries to meet with him so many times once he's out, but his family wants nothing to do with it. Chris is like, don't. He's like, don't call me. Don't come to my house. All these things. And eventually he does show up. And Chris is like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm probably gonna, go visit the Lady of the Woods. And by that, I mean, like, I'm going to go kill myself after this. And then he's like, but you got to go. And so he rushes him off the property. And so then Michael is like, is this guy going to kill himself? What do I do? He doesn't want to talk to me. Is he a threat to himself? And Michael just kind of has to trust that Chris is going to be okay. And that's kind of how the book ends, is that Michael just trusts that Chris is going to be okay. He checks up on him as much as he can. And eventually Chris, like, sends him a postcard or something that's kind of somewhat hopeful, and that's all he has to go on.
Yes, but he does throw a nice little caveat in there. He's like, hope you're having a good time with your wife and your kids. Just to clarify, though, don't ever fucking talk to me again. This isn't like an invitation.
Just an Ed Gein ass. It's just a serial killer letter from just a guy who missed his true calling. He has all of the symptoms of a serial killer. Evan, you said that, and I was like, breaking into houses undetected. Weird issues possible, like social anxiety.
No, but you're totally right. He makes it so clear to Michael. He's like, we're not friends. We're not nothing. He's like, I gave you, go write your little book and leave me the hell alone. Like, and you're like, he's such a dick. But man, do I respect him. Like, it's so weird.
He truly, like, it's just such a great main character to have. I think that's it. That as we're kind of winding down, we're talking about the book. I think that was the thing that I came away with, is you just have this guy who knows a good story with Michael, and then just this freaking weirdo, fascinating, awesome monster, just whatever the hell Chris is. It's just such a perfect mixture.
Yeah, and I love the ending because it doesn't end on like a happy note. Like, it ends very realistically. Like, I don't know if Chris is doing okay. He's probably not doing okay, but we just gotta figure it out, and that's kind of how life is. It's not a tragic ending. It's not a happy ending. It's just a very realistic ending, and so I liked it, even though I was kind of disappointed in a weird way. I still kind of liked it. I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like you can say whatever you want about Chris Knight. He is a lot of things. He's like a super cool hermit. He's also like a criminal who terrorized a community. Like, all of these things are true. I think, though, like, Chris Knight is the most honest human being I have ever even heard of. Right? Because you want to believe that a life of honesty and true authenticity, where you just don't give a shit and you do whatever you want all the time, would look like Thoreau, or some of these other like kind of like jerk offs that were like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm solitary
Street,
and I'm gonna write a book about it. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no, a life of true honesty looks mostly like you kind of sit in a chair for a long time. Like you don't want to do a lot of things, so you don't. You didn't want to talk to people, so you didn't, like, ever, you know, and then you're not too good for Playboy, and you're not too good for a Game Boy. He played Pokemon and watched TV and listened to Seinfeld because his TV broke. I feel like true honesty is not as, like, glamorous and cool and impressive. I think it's this. I think it's like a guy that's just, I'm going to do whatever I want. It's not going to be that great, and then I'm going to come out and people are going to be like, oh, give us your wisdom, and he's just asleep enough, I guess, leave me alone.
It does make me think, like, you know, it's so much better to just do what you want hardcore for 20 years, and then, yeah, you might have to sit somewhere you don't want to sit or do whatever, but, like, doing what you want for 20 years is pretty rewarding.
Yeah, and not many people can say that they did that.
It just, even if it's robbing people and being awful, it's kind of commendable. Yeah.
I kind of doubt
Pokemon
that he ever wanted to quit. Like, because he never really says that, right? He never says, oh, sometimes I want to go home. I think he was like, there was a couple times I thought I was going to die of being cold. But he never, I just legit don't think the part of his brain that we're all thinking is going to kick in any minute and tell him to go home, I just don't think it was there.
Yeah, it's like the free solo guy who's just, his amygdala's like tiny, so he doesn't feel fear.
Yeah, and he pointed out, he's like, ideally I would have died out there and no one would have known about me at all. But some cop had to find me. Which,
to your point, Kyle's like the most like Lao Tzu thing to say. Like, it's just like the whole, like, have you read the Tao Te Ching?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing's like that. It's like, hey, stop caring.
Yeah, it's seriously, stop trying, stop caring, and that's where you're going to find it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like ego death. There's two brands of ego death. There's like pretentious ego death where you do ayahuasca and you're like, my ego is dead and now I'm one with the universe. And then there's like what I think is actual ego death where it's like, I don't really care. It's okay. I can die. I don't need to be significant. And that is scarier, you know? I want the ego death where I'm like a god after, not the one where I'm like, I don't really care if anybody knows about me, you know? That's scary.
It's a lot braver. I think it's a lot harder to come across than trip in at Firefest or whatever, but yeah.
Well, I think those people, when they say ego death, they don't understand that it's like ego death is what Chris did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like everybody thinks ego death is like, I don't care anymore, and it's like, no, you care.
You know,
you're telling me all about how much you don't care. You care.
That's how I know.
You know who loves talking about ego death is Eckhart Tolle with his weird little accent.
Oh yeah,
ego death is the death of the. I can't stand that guy's accent.
Really,
it drives me nuts.
I hate Power Up Now is interesting, but it's the same thing that happens with like Peterson or a lot of these guys is they've just taken Buddhism and like Nietzsche and like all these really interesting thought experiments from years and years ago and dumbed it right down for you.
Oh,
and
100%.
then they act like they're so magical. Like that's Rick Rubin. He can talk like that.
No, I love that. So what would you guys give this out of 5 stars? I'd give this 5 stolen propane tanks out of 5. I really like this book. I liked it a lot. I think if you're listening to this, we've talked about it, but you should read it on your own because you'll probably take away something different than we all did. So what do you guys think about it overall?
I would give it 5 batteries that you don't find in your remotes. I don't know. I wasn't prepared with a 5-star thing. It's a good book. I loved it. I love this book so much. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Playboys.
Damn it. You took the one out. 5 out of 5 disappointed 80-year-old mothers. It hit all it made me think a lot, as you've heard from my ramblings over the course of this podcast. But it really did it's such a spiritual thing, but then it's also a guy who's just stunted at 20 years old and is a douche. It's a fascinating little story that is fun to stumble upon.
Just raw, real, great. That's 3 5-star ratings across the board. So if you're listening to this,
a winner.
Go get the copy. It's not that long either. It's pretty short, which is nice.
On 1.5 speed, it's only 6 hours. If you bump it up to 2.0 speed, you can get that shit done in a day. Day and a half.
That's right. This is Bibliopools, where we just go, how fast do I have to listen to this to, in time for the podcast?
But even though I listen
books.
to
We
it really fast, we fucking love books. The last bit, it's also the part that I was least interested in. I was like, I don't care how he gets back into society. I just want to get in his head. So, as I kind of got less interested, I sped it up, and then we got to the ending where I was like, oh wow, it's just such an indie movie, dark ending. And it still hits on a whatever point speed you want to listen to it on. It's just such an interesting story.
It's an interesting story. It made us think. It made me think a lot. I don't know if we'll ever have these kind of conversations again with a book. Hopefully we will. But this is the second episode of the podcast. If you listened all the way through, holy crap, thank you so much. We appreciate that. We're just 3 guys who like talking and reading books and rushing through books at times. So thank you for listening. We also want to give a big thank you to Michael Finkel, who took the time away from his family, as Chris noted, to research and write this book. And then, finally, a massive thank you to Chris Knight for sharing your authentic story in a way that only you could do it, and giving us insights into a life that most people will never live, and showing us that life doesn't need to be lived a certain way. So big thank you to Chris.